Um, I gotta say, worst movie ever. So yesterday I made the analogy. Let me see if I can fix this. I'm trying to fix this without my computer. They're getting involved. Anyway, I made this crack yesterday that I was walking down Hollywood Boulevard and I had felt as if I was I was in a bad movie, right? And I laid this whole argument out about how seeing the posters on the wall and walking past the restaurants and bars that I would frequent and think of how surreal it looked as if it was this bad movie that I can't wake up from. Now, the other thing, if you guys listen to the show and you know me quite well, you will also know that I am not a fan of the media. And the media, they look for storylines. They look for storylines and they blow them up in order to get views and clicks and everything that comes with that. And so they magnify bad movie plots. And because they're magnifying bad movie plots, this idea of this movie, of this really bad movie, uh, continues to grow. And I don't want to get into all the subplots of this really bad movie because then I have to get involved in some political ideas and angles and things that I don't want to get into because that's not what the Art of Charm is about. We are about bringing people together, not dividing people. And so I don't want to get into that. But you can imagine, all you have to do is pay attention to any of the mainstream media's movie plot lines. And this brings up this idea that Eric Weinstein, if you're not familiar with him, he's a very intelligent guy. And he brought it up on Joe Rogan the other day, this idea of kayfabe. And kayfabe was, now I don't know much about wrestling, but the idea is that in wrestling's early days, they would interject some fake matches with the real matches in order to blow up the plot lines and make it interesting and bring in drama. And they slowly began to realize that the people who were paying the tickets to go to these wrestling matches were getting more interested in the kayfabe storylines than they were in the actual matches. So they began to add more fake matches to the card. And it finally had gotten to a point where the whole card was these crazy dramatic storylines and insanity, and that's what people were paying the money to see. And this idea has been burnt into my brain when Eric mentioned it on Joe, and I just can't seem to get it out of my mind that our media and television and politics is running on these fabricated storylines, narratives that to me are just unentertaining. They're awful. They're bad movies that I wouldn't waste my time seeing. If they were on Netflix, I wouldn't watch them. I don't even have a Netflix account. I like getting something for my time. I like reading. I like learning a skill. I want there to be a trade-off that makes that time worth it for me. Being entertained by drama and bad storylines has just never worked for me. And so here we are. And I only bring this up because I had trouble sleeping last night. And I don't know for you guys, but I would imagine that everybody is having good days and bad days. And what was that? Last week I mentioned that on my morning show that some days are good, some days are bad. Now, it wasn't that I had anxiety or anything going on that I was aware of. let me turn that off. Sorry about that, guys. It wasn't that I had any anxiety or anything going on. What it was, I don't, well, there's a lot of stuff going on. I don't know what it was. I didn't get a good night's sleep. I woke up early and then, it wasn't one of those times where I had woken up early and I was ready to take on the day. I had woken up early, realized what was going on around me, saw the bad movie plots, and just decided that I wasn't going to get up. Why get up for that? That's where I'm at. I have some great questions that I'm going to answer. One from Diana, one from another person. I did want to say that I am really excited for today, though, because I get to interview John Taffer in a little bit from Bar Rescue. And that's one of the great things about Art of Charm, is to be able to interview some of these people who I've came to know through their books or TV shows. And for you guys who don't know, if you listen to the show, you would know that I had come before the Art of Charm. I was working in bars. I was in the music industry, working at venues, but also managing and running those venues. I was a talent buyer, a bartender, door guy. I've done every job in the service industry. And then when we moved to New York to start the Art of Charm, I was managing a restaurant bar in Alphabet City before the Art of Charm started doing its thing, and I went full-time there. And you can imagine working in the service industry, bars, restaurants, talent buying, management, that there is a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff that a regular person who just casually dines out doesn't see what's going on. There is a lot of colorful characters, to say the least, who work in the service industry for its reasons. But, well, let me give you one reason, right? You might think, oh, colorful characters. What is Johnny trying to say? Is he saying that the service industry, you don't have to take it seriously? That's not what I'm saying at all. So, for instance, when I got involved in the service industry, when I got involved working the door and working at venues, I did that job because I could go out on a tour for 2 weeks and come back and still have a job. It wasn't a stressful situation. I didn't have to invest too much in. So it was an easy job to come in and out. And for some people, that works well with their lifestyles and their side hustles that they were trying to do. I think everyone's got a side hustle anymore. And so because of that, and especially in music, in art, you're going to work with colorful characters, the creatives, the people who are a bit out there, and will go through great lengths to go out there to fuel their creativity, looking for inspiration. And because of that exchange, you have just a wide variety of personalities, talents that all converge into the service industry nightlife scene. I mean, for John, it's Bar Rescue, right? So he's dealing with nightlife. And I've had friends involved in every aspect of nightlife. So whether it's going to be bars, nightclubs, bar restaurants, rock and roll venues, I've done all of them, and I'm very acquainted with what goes on in such an industry. And watching Bar Rescue always cracked me up, because the things, to me, that were so blatant and obvious, John would always pick up, because it was those things that made a venue that was hospitable, that you would feel welcomed and it would have a lot of fun going. And, bars have a tendency, and I've said this on the show, that when it comes to socialization, culture, that is top down. It comes from the top of the hierarchy in that environment. You could say it's its own ecosystem. And so, who is at the top of the bar or the restaurant? It's going to be the owner, and then management, and then leveling through the employees. And those attitudes and culture and ideas would be prevalent in the regulars, the patrons who would show up. And usually for the owners, they'd pop in, they hang out, but they didn't want involved because they're trying to keep a relatively normal and productive life behind the scenes. So they would pop in, make sure everything's going well, but they would have their managers holding down the fort. And so the attitudes and the culture would usually stem from the managers and then to the bartenders. And being in that role, management, bartending, all those things, you had to make sure that you were on your A game. And let's just, for instance, if you had gotten caught up in the nightlife lifestyle, it would be very easy to fall off the rails, so to speak. Maybe you've been drinking too much, you've been hanging out, working all day, you've had some beers by the time the place opens, you're a little bit loopy. And that would be a time for you to probably exit. But if you were a manager who really cared and wanted to make sure that everything is going right, well, then you could probably talk yourself into staying, being in that sort of condition. But it is that type of lifestyle where being that the manager, perhaps you were a little bit too drunk to be there, that goes into your employees then getting a little bit too drunk while they're working. Some states you're allowed to drink while you're working, you're drinking with the customers. Some places allow that, some don't allow that, some management does. But you can imagine if you're the manager, you're hammered, you want the drink and your employees to be hammered, so now they're hammered, now they're a little bit relaxed about what's going on in the venue, and now the patrons are getting a little rowdy, and they're getting a little bit out of control. And a lot of times, depending on that environment, a lot of the staff will have friends there. It's very common in the nightlife for an establishment, for a management to have their employees to bring part of that crowd in. Part of your job is to let your friends know that you're working, to come on out so you're also practically, for some places, a promoter for that bar as well. And for some people, if you're working like the day shift, well, you want your friends to come out, support you, throw you some extra tips. It's just that sort of very loose, very casual, fun place. But you can imagine, in order to establish a place where you feel comfortable letting loose, that also rides the rails. Justin, yes, I'm live right now. So that also allows you, so that you're riding the rails, and that can either fall off each side. So that restaurant business certainly has a lot of different points to it that I used to love watching. So anyway, that's why I'm really excited to check out, to talk to John today. It's going to be a blast. So, it's like I've had my foot into that world for a good 10 years, working in bars, managing bars, playing bars from every aspect. It's certainly shaped. And one of the things that you guys, if you listen to the show, you know that I use my time in a bar to do social experiments. As a bartender, I would go in with an aspect of socialization that I wanted to work on that evening. Maybe it was emotional bids. Maybe it was trait compliments. Maybe it was more smiling. And I would be able to measure the effects of that monetarily through my tips. And I would take notes. It would make the job fun for me. And those experiments, that side of being infatuated, obsessed, if you will, with socialization, had led to the creation of the Art of Charm. So you can imagine talking to John today is going to be really rad. All right. So I got some questions here I was going to tackle. And one is going to go right into the habits today. So I have a question from Diana. I have a question from, I believe it was John. We'll get to those. If you have any, throw them up. I'll check that. I'll check Instagram. All right. So one of the questions was all the habits that we have come to build in quarantine, how will we maintain them when this is all over? And this also ties into Diana's question, which I will get to in a moment. Now, there are habits and mindsets that I think all of us are trying to adopt to make this quarantine easier on all of us. As I mentioned, this is not a sprint. This is a marathon. If this was a sprint, this would have been over in a week or two. But here we are 1 month in, looking at all of April being quarantined with the possibility of another 2 months or another month from what I've seen. Hopefully not. I wouldn't want that on anybody. This is already difficult as it is. Now, with that, if we're going to be doing that long, we've adopted mindsets, we've adapted new habits. Maybe we're working out every day. Maybe we're eating in a certain manner because we want to stay healthy through all this. We've worked to build those habits. We've been consistent. Well, when things open back up, you're going to have a choice. What are the habits that you've put together to serve you well in quarantine? Are they going to serve you well outside of quarantine? Are they going to help you outside of quarantine? I can tell you, I haven't changed up much of my routine at all. In fact, part of my mindset in doing this was I didn't want to change much of anything, if anything at all. My workouts that were in the morning at the gym are now in my living room. I have two kettlebells sitting out from this morning's workout. The first thing that I'm going to want to do after this is get to the gym. I miss the gym more than anything. I miss the people that I don't even speak to in the gym, who were just the regulars that I always saw there, who gave me the familiarity that it is a regular average day. Those are the small things that I think all of us are going to be looking forward to. So with that, not only I don't feel that it's going to be difficult for you to maintain these habits. You're going to be excited to maintain them because of how they've benefited you here. You can imagine if you have been able to dial in more discipline coming into this than you have up until this point through this situation, then why wouldn't you want to continue to establish that after this is over? It's only going to serve you that much better without this. So I don't think it's going to be difficult at all. However, I do want to tie this into Diana's question is, she asked me, how do I think people will deal with the indulgence of leaving here after this is all over? Going back to normal life, being able to indulge in toxic behaviors that perhaps we've all missed. I can tell you one, I haven't drank since this. I think a lot of people are going to want to go out and get hammered. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you want to celebrate when this is all over? And to Diana's question, I think that a lot of people are going to get after it, so to speak. But that's not going to last very long. All of us are going to be facing career changes, an economic depression, and situation that is not clear, living situations, and debt that we're going to have to come to terms with that had gotten us through this moment, myself included. So there's going to be that short honeymoon period of it's over, we're back to normal, but even that honeymoon period is going to have some restrictions towards it. They're just not going to get on the news and tell us that everything's fine and you can go back to your normal life and everything's going to be back to normal. We still have a pandemic that we don't have a vaccine for, that will only put us back in this position if not dealt with in a systematic way. And so to Diana's question, there might be some gatherings, there might be some of us who are going to be excited to get back out there a bit, get back to our normal routines, but to be able to just jump back into a world that we had left, that is a long time and waiting. I don't know when that's going to be. The idea of life being back to normal for some people is impossible. And so that question has so many answers that are left for all of us to wait and see. So with that, I will say that for all of us here is to make the most of this time while we have it, while the world is on pause, to build some habits that will serve us well when we get out of this. Also, to learn some skills that will serve us well when we get out of this. And I will say, the other thing, Diana, if you're watching this, is what I've also observed that those who've had discipline coming into this use that discipline to create, to learn skills, to build themselves up, to get ready for this to open back up so that when we hit the road running, we can get out of here. It was a very small percentage of people who saw this as an opportunity to do things that they had been putting off for a long time. Most people saw this as an opportunity to just get even lazier than they already had been. I've been seeing on Facebook, I've been seeing on social media, if you weren't somebody who had a growth mindset and looked at things through that lens, why would this shake you up? It was a very small percentage of people who decided that that was a good idea. So with that, I am going to head out. If you guys do want to build skills, if you are looking for something to do, check out the Art of Charm's Communication Accelerator. It has everything that you're going to need to learn to build better connections and skyrocket your career and networking and love, life, and career. And one of the great things about it is you can practice all the skills and all the tactics that are in it right from your home, from Zoom to your Zoom meetings, to build and bridge and connect and deepen connections with your family and friends. So take that time, check it out, and let me see who's up on Insta, and I will give you guys a second here. I talk a lot, I don't tell too much. I think I said a lot. Normal life not come very soon. No, I don't think it's going to. How are things in your town? Well, I am in Los Angeles, and I live on Hollywood Boulevard, and it's been quite difficult for everybody. All right. I'm going through. Link. Just go to my Twitter, the Art of Charm Twitter, and you'll see plenty of links. I put it on a lot of the tweets, the Art of Charm Twitter. What's the topic of the day? Woody, it was habits. What are the things are going to look like when we get out of this? For the communication class, you can just go to the Art of Charm's website. It is the Art of Charm Communication Accelerator. It's rad. Just look for the accelerator on theartofcharm.com. And travel size. Thank you. Well, thank you very much. And join. All right. I guess that's everybody. I guess I could head out. Brussels Charlie, I love it. You talk a lot, but you don't tell much. Some would argue about that, but I can see why you would think that. All right, kids. Awesome. Well, I will see you all tomorrow. Thank you all. Cheers. Thank you, Soren. So rad. All right. See you guys.